Contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Māori Television Service, Te Aratoku Whakaata Irirangi Māori Amendment Bill, third reading.
Point of order, the Honourable Member
Mr. Speaker,
Tim McIndoe.
Mr. Speaker, I move that it be an instruction to the Committee of the Whole House that consideration of all parts and schedules of the Building Amendment Bill number 4 be taken as one debate in committee.
Is there any objection to that course of action? Oh, it's a motion. It's got to be voted. All right. All those in favour, please say aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Therefore, honourable members, I call on Government Order of the Day number 4.
Building Amendment Bill number 4, committee stage.
I declare the House in committee for consideration of the Building Amendment Bill number 4. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Speaker.
He's coming now.
You want to swap now?
Lindsay, do you want to swap now?
Do you want to?
Might as well start. Start as you mean to continue.
Yeah, I was here. So you'd have to say.
Good, okay. Good evening, honourable members. The House is in committee on the Building Amendment Bill. Narrator, tēnā koutou katoa. The question is that Part 1, Part 2, Clauses 1, 2 and 3 stand part.
Chairman.
I call the Honourable Minister Maurice Williamson.
Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to take a fairly brief call at the beginning of this, and I hope I will cover off what I think are the key issues in this bill. It is indeed a piece of reform that got started well and truly before this government came into office. I give some commendation to the Honourable Shane Jones, who was my predecessor. In fact, there's many people out there that say I'm the best Minister of Building and Construction since Shane Jones. Given that I'm the only one since Shane Jones, that's at least a compliment. And so the reform of that whole sector, which started with the Building Act of 2004 and now has to have a number of other things added to it. This bill has got some elements, sir, about consumer protection, about needing written contracts if the work you are engaged with a builder is over $20,000. But there are some issues that I think were raised along the way, and I just want to try and cover them off quickly, and then I will shut up and allow other members to make their comments. First, I think the almost slightly valid criticism was this bill is a bit piecemeal in dealing with the sector because it's only a certain part of it. And I make no excuse for the fact that I've had to do this in tranches. When we did the number 3 bill, its predecessor, which had stuff about risk-based consenting, which, by the way, we can only trigger once this bill is through, which has enormous impacts for Christchurch. If we're going to really make some progress in the Christchurch rebuild, we do want to have risk-based consenting, that is very, very low-risk stuff, having almost no relative scrutiny compared to stuff that it's at the very high end of the risk. So this bill completes probably the last of the criteria needed to trigger the regulations for risk-based consenting. But I couldn't get it all done in one hit, even though I'd have loved to. I'd have loved to have one huge building amendment omnibus bill. So we did the number 3 bill, got that through, got it in place, and when the number 4 bill tonight is finished, sir, it'll allow us to trigger things like risk-based consenting. So I would hope that instead of members seeing this as being a bit piecemeal, this was stuff that needed to be held over while we got through. The second thing is that I've heard people say that the bill should provide for proportionate liability in the building sector, particularly in light of the Spencer on Byron Supreme Court decision and so on. And can I say, Mr Speaker, this is the greatest bugbear of my life about the building sector. I think that joint and several liability is wrong. I think you should be held accountable for the things that you do, and you shouldn't be held accountable for things that you didn't do. But sadly, under our current liability, with this called joint and several, you are joined with everybody else, and if they did something wrong, you can be caught in that web, as local authorities found to their chagrin. And it's a harder issue than any of the members of this House will give it credit for. We have kicked it off to the Law Commission. They are doing an in-depth piece of work and will report back to us, hopefully by the end of the year maybe, or early in the new year, as to whether we could go to proportionate liability. I want to say to members that other jurisdictions around the world do have proportionate liability, and it works. So I don't see why we couldn't, because I'll repeat it again, you should be held accountable for the things that you do. You should not be held accountable for the things that someone else did wrong, and then you're the last man standing. And I know a number of territorial local authorities got caught up in all of the leaky home syndrome when in fact they ended up being the last man standing. It says one of the other issues I think raised during the Select Committee was the bill should require mandatory home warranties. Well, that's pretty closely related to that whole liability issue. And whereas, again, it's a very pet hobby of mine, I'd love to go to some mandatory warranties. If you buy a new car, you get a warranty. If you buy a new plasma screen, you get a warranty, and it's guaranteed fit for purpose. But sadly, under the current regime, if you get a new house, there are some issues about what liabilities are sheeted home to who and whether there's a warranty. So we'll have to wait for the Law Commission's report. But I give members an absolute watertight guarantee that if the Law Commission gives us some room to move, then I will be pushing to move to proportionate liability. One of the other issues I think raised at the Select Committee was the bill does not go far enough in protecting, Mr Chairman,
Minister Williamson.
does not go far enough in protecting consumers. Well, I think that's always going to be an issue. I'm hopeful that this has got the balance right. It requires everybody involved in work over 20,000 to have a written contract, and I think the amendments in the bill will be supported by the consumer information that is there. Education and advice over the next few years will tell people involved in the building sector what their rights are and how to get better information. And an effective monitoring regime, I think, also in place to track improvements in consumer awareness is part of what we're bringing in here. Two or three other items. All parties, that is consumer, building professionals and building consent authorities, continue to be financially exposed even for defects that is not their making. Well, that's again under the liability aspect, and I think it's fair to say that we've just got to wait for the Law Commission. Hopefully we'll get a good report. The bill does not address the huge skill deficit in the sector. That's true, but it's not the role of this bill. My colleague Stephen Joyce today, I was with him out in Lower Hutt or Petone, where we were launching a new construction training unit at Welltech, and the new apprenticeship scheme has got 8,000 more enrolled in the building apprenticeship scheme than we had anticipated. So yes, there will be a skill shortage from time to time. That's just the nature of this industry, peaks and troughs. And with Christchurch coming on stream, and when it does come on, it will be huge. With the shortage of housing in Auckland, there'll be a big demand. I can forecast now, so I want to go on record now as saying the big complaint that will occur in about 18 months or so from now is there's not enough skilled practitioners in the field. But let me actually add the next complaint. In about 3 years from there, maybe 4 years from there, there'll be a complaint there's not enough work for all the skilled practitioners. That's just the nature of the cyclical beast of the way this industry works. There's a couple of other bits in it that are sort of almost a bit of add-ons, but I just want to cover them quickly in the 2 minutes I've got. There was a complaint that the bill is weakening dam safety scheme that's currently in the Building Act. And Mr Chairman, I want to make it clear that we think that this is about the right level of risk management without imposing unnecessary compliance costs. A number of local authorities and regional councils have been to me and said, look, please don't make it that we have to get involved in a lot of bureaucracy on quite small pools of water that shouldn't be called a dam. But we understand that if they are big pools of water with a lot of height and a lot of volume, they can pose a risk. And I think that what we've done in dam safety in this will target dams that should be subject to the scheme that are higher risk, and improving the effectiveness of the dam safety scheme. And finally, Select Committee change to the large dam definition captures even more small dams, making the regulation more onerous, was the last of the complaints. And I say that amendments in the supplementary order paper will remove that unnecessary compliance costs while ensuring the Select Committee's intent, that is, to address potential safety concerns. So, Mr Chairman, I'm going to sit here and I'm not going to take too many more calls because I think people get sick of hearing from me. But I think this is an integral part of the Building Act reforms. It's a very exciting night for me, this number 4 bill going through, because I think it completes it. And I want to repeat again, just some credit to my predecessor, Shane Jones, and actually a number of building ministers before him, because I think Labor had about 6 building ministers within 6 years. This was the path that had already been set out when I read my briefing as an incoming minister. This reform of the sector was already in train, and I'm delighted that we're going to get it through the House tonight.
I call the honourable member